Hello, all you beautiful people out there in the ether that I like to call the internet. Welcome to Legally Sevvy, where today we will chat about Sarah Boone and what happened at the sentencing hearing. You might be wondering who Sarah Boone is, and Sarah Boone is a Florida woman who murdered her boyfriend after he was inside a suitcase for several hours. Um, According to her testimony at trial, she said that she did it on purpose. She said it was intentional because she was afraid that if he came out of the suitcase, he was going to come out and get her and potentially kill her. That is her story. When she was first arrested and when she was in custody, she told a very different story to the police. She said that it was not intentional because she had been drinking, because she had left the zipper open enough for him to get out on his own, and she just fell asleep. Did you notice the discrepancy between her testimony when she told the police that and her testimony at trial? Well, the jury did too, and they sentenced her to second-degree murder. What the jury ended up stating was that her actions would have led a reasonable person to believe that by not doing anything, by the effect that she was not going out and releasing him from the suitcase, he was going to die. So the sentencing hearing yesterday that was held on December 2nd of 2024 at 1:30 p.m. Eastern was about what sentence should she get. She had a plea deal that she rejected. And the question really was whether or not she was going to get something else or whether she was going to get life. And in order to talk more about exactly what type of sentence she should have received, we have to look at Florida statutes. So, what would allow a judge the ability to give her less time other than life? We're looking at Florida statute 9210026, mitigating circumstances, where it delineates that certain factors must be met in order for the judge to take them into consideration in lowering her sentence. There are, of course, Florida statutes that talk about aggravating circumstances. Aggravating means you will add to it. It's something that makes the situation worse, right? And that would be if it's related to gangs, for example, if it's related to drugs, or if you're attacking somebody with a deadly weapon. But aggravating circumstances are not something that were considered in Boone's sentencing hearing. The judge was asked to look at specific mitigating circumstances, and we will talk about the ones that the judge considered. The first one that the judge considered is the capacity of the defendant to appreciate the criminal nature of the conduct. That is one of the items that were discussed. So in the sentencing hearing, the expert witness testified that Sarah Boone did this in an isolated incident. She said that this happened because it was an extreme situation due to her PTSD. The defense attorney also pointed out in his closing remarks that Sarah Boone did not hide it. He made sure to point out that if she actually appreciated the nature of the crime that had been committed, she would have destroyed the evidence on her phone. She would have hid the body, not told the truth about what happened. right? So he was getting to, she did not appreciate the criminal nature of the conduct, which was leaving him in the suitcase, would have been considered second-degree murder. Because if she had done that, then she would have deleted all the evidence. Next one is this one, where the attorney for the defense stated that this was related to her PTSD. Now, it is important to note that Sarah Boone was diagnosed with different diagnoses, one of which was alcoholism. The other one was PTSD. At the trial, there was a lot of testimony about what other diagnoses should be added or not added, but that's really not the argument that was brought during the closing remarks for the sentencing hearing. The defense attorney stated that the reason why she snapped in this extreme situation or extreme circumstance was because of her PTSD. He didn't mention the fact that she was an alcoholic and she was under the influence of alcohol when this happened. He did not mention that at all. Sarah Boone, in her statement, in her impact statement to the court, she said that she was forced to drink alcohol. So that really, I think, brings a really good question about what really was going on. Most of the stuff that Sarah Boone said during her testimony was not supported and was not something that was proven as a fact. It's more of an allegation about what Jorge Torres allegedly did or didn't do. But for purposes of the sentencing hearing, the defense attorney focused on the fact that the murder happened because of her PTSD, because of battered spouse syndrome. What the defense argued, based on the testimony from their expert witness, was that she had such a traumatic background from her father and then from being with Jorge Torres, that she knew that if he got out, he was going to kill her or hurt her in some way. So the defense attorney did an interesting dance here when he was trying to argue that the reason for the crime was because of her PTSD. And he kept bringing up the fact that this was an extreme circumstance and this was an isolated incident. So she was not going to go out there and keep doing it or snap and act in this way towards anybody else.
Dr. Harper, you're aware that the defense has filed a defendant's motion for downward departure.
Yes.
And we've listed several factors under paragraph 3, the capacity of the defendant to appreciate the criminal nature of her actions and conform with the requirements of law were substantially impaired, that she requires specialized treatment for a mental disorder that is not related to substance use or addiction, although you agree that she does suffer from alcohol use disorder.
So she has an underlying mental health disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and I additionally diagnosed her with alcohol use disorder, which is separate.
But you agree she does require specialized treatment for a mental disorder that's not related to the substance use or addiction?
That's correct.
And you agree she's amenable for treatment?
Yes.
And you would agree that she acted under extreme duress in this unique homicide case?
Yes.
In her testimony, Sarah Boone blamed everybody. She blamed the victim, Jorge Torres. She made allegations that were not proven. They were unsubstantiated. Some allegations she did show that they did happen, but not everything she said.
The damage caused by George Torres, the Torres family, the justice system, Orange County Corrections Department, social media, scoundrel detectives, infamy, defamation, ongoing constitutional rights violations, second-degree murder, forced into being pro se.
She blamed the court system. She blamed the media. I believe she called social media an organized crime entity. That was also very interesting.
Another great contributor of my gold is social media, with its greed, insensitivity, deception, obvious exploitation, and advantageous gain from my criminal case as a whole, and for sentencing me by anticipation as a result of ignorance and hate, conjured and fabricated by the organized crime that is social media, which condemned me in the court of global public opinion since the beginning.
She just blamed everybody except for herself. She did not take any type of responsibility. And in the closing remarks, the defense then goes on to say that she is remorseful. I didn't see that remorse. Did you?
In the end, I forgive myself for not choosing my life sooner, for not being more brave, vigilant, bolder, and outspoken, stronger, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, for being hopeless, desperate, simple-minded, weak, and inexperienced. I forgive myself for not realizing I was enduring a life of domestic violence and that the vicious cycle of never ends. I had nothing to compare to. I've never been hit by a man ever before in my life. I was raised hitting a woman was wrong and should never happen. No excuse. I forgive myself for not escaping permanently, for not fighting back sooner to save myself, my son, my dogs, home, and car. Having 20/20 hindsight, thinking of everything I could have done differently or better to avoid the outcome. I think about this every day since. Also, of all the good days we had together, for him at least, while I was constantly in hyperdrive, high alert, and paranoid, making sure I did everything right all the time. If not, the great possibility I would be ended as George threatened me with so many times before. I forgive myself for falling in love with a monster, and no matter how grotesque he may become, I still loved him, hoped, and forgave. I tried breaking the spell so he wouldn't be a monster anymore. I saw who he was inside. George made me then, now, and always love him for all of his cracks also. We made each other our own brilliant pieces of art from the cracks and repairs. Unfortunately, not all cracks can be. In all of my forgiveness, George is my greatest lesson and will forever be a part of me. I think of him every day and still speak to him when alone on the rec yard. I ask his forgiveness and that he looks for me at the gates of heaven so I can tell him how sorry I am, endlessly, and that I never stopped loving him. In all of it and still. When I first came to jail, I put my mat under my bed and cried all day and all night for months, only falling asleep from being so exhausted with grief. I wrote him letters. I wrote his family and his daughters, apologizing for asking for their forgiveness. But due to fear that my life or sons would be jeopardized, I did not send. I am sorry. I cannot begin to fathom any of their grief and sadness. Please forgive me.
Please let me know what you think in the comments. If you think this sentence was appropriate, or if you think she should have received less. Please remember to like this video and leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. Was this the right verdict? Should it be 25 years? Should it be less? I'm interested in your thoughts. Also, please remember to subscribe and help Legally Sevvy grow. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will talk to all of you later. Bye, everybody.